I dipped my toes in one of the most popular space sims of all time back in 2016. And while it was fun, I only stuck around for a total of about 30 hours, with my last login being all the way back in 2018. At the time, I didn't have my penchant for punishing sandbox experiences that don't make the player the main character, and I didn't have the patient gamer habits that lend themselves to things like X4, Kenshi, and hopefully Elite Dangerous. So, what better time than now to take it for another spin? Let's charge up the FSD and see where we left off all those years ago. We've got next to no rep, a very minimally built Type 6, and are sitting out in a pretty quiet corner of Alliance space. We did a few cargo runs to get some funds that we can use to kit out our ground loadout, and go on the hunt for a ship that we can use for low-level combat that isn't our transporter, as the 18 light-year jump range is a little rough when you don't have the cash to really build up a ship that's this heavy. Well, we got our Cobra, we swapped out some of the starting modules for lighter gear to bump up our jump range a smidge, but now we gotta cross a pretty good chunk of the verse to get to the engineer that'll open up FSD upgrades for us. Time to put on a podcast and get to jumping. So, maybe rebuilding my FSD isn't in the cards at the moment, but we can definitely make some cash as a gun for hire. So, let's find a system with a conflict zone. Our first fight using Space Legs was a little clumsy, as I didn't realize the thermal and kinetic damages work the same in ground combat as they did up in space, but we got our feet under us pretty quickly and made some solid cash to kickstart our previously stalled career as a pilot. We helped take out a couple of hostile ships near the ground combat zones we were jamming with, and then set off to a high-tech system in hopes of either a better loadout for the Cobra or a Viper Mark IV, since half the value of a ship is how cool you look when flying around. And the Cobra's fine, it's just... I don't know, I want something that doesn't crumple like a tin can when its shields drop. I'm also thinking about throwing my vote in with one of the powers vying for control of the bubble. When Elite was still pretty active on Xbox, I did a fair bit of flying for the Imperials and later switched teams to serve under President Winters. But I'm kinda digging combat this time around, and I love me some Federal spacecraft, so I'm kinda leaning towards Hudson's protege, Archer, for this bout. Let's get our boat squared away first, and then we'll circle back here. With a barely serviceable build, we enlist in Jerome Archer's conquest of the bubble in the name of the Federation. We hop over to a stronghold carrier and took part in some light defensive engagements against a few Imperial pilots, and then went aboard to see what goodies we can snag for our little space boat. So, the first few space fights didn't go poorly. Light hull damage, but pretty good returns on the combat bonds. I then thought, let's upgrade to a DBX. That was my go-to back in the days of Xbox Elite. How the hell did I get nuked like that, though? Similar performance as far as top speed and lateral thrust to my Cobra, heavier shields, substantially more firepower, but I just got batted around the room by my ankles because Obi-Wan fucking Kenobi flying as Vulture to steal some meds thought I looked tasty, I guess. Not gonna lie, this was a little demotivating. I only had 1,200 credits after my DBX rebuy and was very much in need of some direction or some sort of goal to work towards. I'm avoiding leaning on Reddit like I normally would for game info, and while I was at one point very familiar with the in-game systems, that was years ago, and I'm definitely really damn rusty. I can't imagine the DBX has stopped being as flexible as it used to be, so we're just gonna try to play it a little safer and hit the ground running next time. I did a few hours of flying without recording so I could, figure out what the hell I was doing in this game. My DBX is now outfitted a little better for jump range and some light shuttle work instead of trying to do the wrong job with the wrong tool. And I traded in the Cobra for a Mark V variant that's being set up specifically for combat. An issue I've run into a few times on here is just, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, ships not being purpose-built, no goals to work towards. You end up lost in the systems upon systems upon systems that make up Elite. So we're gonna stick with our ground combat loop to farm the funds, to finish our Cobra out as a proper power play boat, and we'll use the Diamondback like its mama intended for exploration. The plan is actually on track. We're operating out of one of our friendly strongholds, farming rep with the local Federation representatives, and acquiring piles of money in exchange for some kinetic handshakes. We got the rest of the modules needed to make a pretty survivable build out of the Cobra Mark V, and we're on track taking out the power play intro objectives thanks to Elite Trade Pad. The rare goods have been offloaded, I've propped up the bank account with a few million in bounties, and I've scanned ships in controlled regions. These escape pods are mildly infuriating to say the least though. I've scanned a few planets, dropped into multiple conflict zones, few crash sites, and I have yet to find a single occupied one. To the next nav beacon and POI we go in search of human popsicles on the float, ladies and gentlemen. Our commander's still a long way from rich, but he's got some momentum now. At rank 6 with President Archer, we've got a rebuy discount and a bump to our bounty payouts. Plus, we're on the way to having a couple of pretty polished little space boats here. We've stuck with our home base in TZ Arietis and are friendly with the dominant federal factions in the area. I think our next steps for the foreseeable future are going to be to continue knocking out power play objectives and get the funding we needed for engineering. With the Cobra, we've got a great general use combat ship, and the DBX is perfect for search and rescue or light passenger work in hazardous areas. But we need something we can do actual community goal work with, as that's the only thing I'm not currently equipped for since neither of these ships can be considered any sort of hauler. So we head back to the grind in search of a space truck. As we accrue wealth, I am also making sure to keep my rep climbing with the Federation, because someday I'm gonna have a Corvette. But for now, joining the Archer Discord for a little direction on where to point my effort in power play and knocking out some missions for the Navy on my Cobra seems like a pretty sound course of action. Something you realize once you've kind of settled into a loop where you start getting comfy and building habits in Elite, it goes from this like sensory overload space flight sim into something that's like damn near a cozy game. While getting the gameplay for this video, Sunday mornings with a cup of coffee and the most recent episode of one of my favorite podcasts was like the best way to grab the next hour or so of footage I needed. When I tried Elite for the first time nearly a decade ago, I just kept trying to get into combat or figuring out how to make more and more money, and never learned any of the setup required or anything like that. Elite really is a game where you need to learn to walk before you can run, but once you can run it's all second nature. For those of you like myself, who temporarily abandoned the game back in the days of Xbox support and Horizon's limited exploration, Odyssey adds a whole new game to Elite. I've mentioned multiple times so far that the ground conflicts are a great way to earn money. They also build your reputation with the local factions incredibly efficiently. This is useful for more than just bumping your faction ranks though. It offers a new layer to break up the monotony of jumps to and from your home system ferrying expansion commodities or CG related hauls. My favorite part of Elite is the cathartic thump in and out of hyperspace as you pick your path across one of the most authentically alive universes ever made for us players. But being able to armor up, grab your gear, and hit the field for a gunfight or to scavenge a deserted lab makes this aging beast of a game stay so relevant in the space sim community. Hopefully this last bout between minor Fed factions earned us enough scratch to do some runs for the current community goal. We should be able to hang on to a good chunk of our DBX's jump range while swapping a few survival related modules for a little bit more cargo space for the moment. Then we just gotta buy a hold full of relevant supplies, make a couple of jumps to the edge of civilization, and bingo. Well shit, we pulled more than $1 million in profit off less than 50 tons of cargo. I guess we finally have to get our bigger ship, huh? I'm starting my keelback era. At between 2 and 3 million credits per haul, we've already made back almost all of the cash spent on the new ship and secured our 100 mil payout in a week or so when the community goal ends. After a healthy handful of trips to and from Starlay Station and several million in parts to touch up the Cobra and DBX though, I realize I'm not going to break the top 75% since I'm jumping into this thing 3 weeks late, and I'm using one of the smallest hauling vessels in the game. But after signing up and working a CG, it does feel good to know you moved some of that stuff, and you took part in crashing that resource market around Minerva. It's starting to feel like I gave Elite its first shot like a whole ass decade too early. Most of the time when knocking out a video like this, longer form, sort of narrative, seeing what an adventure in a given game universe for a new player is like, I don't play them between the evening or morning recording sessions when I'm like actually taking notes, building the video. I enjoy the games, and I usually do come back to them afterwards, but there's a different headspace you end up in while playing something with the intention of taking notes, recording your screen, talking into a microphone. I recorded this over the course of about 2 months, and while I did do my usual notepad and OBS on one monitor, games on the other, I found myself forgetting to take notes, jumping on the Archer Discord to see where the arms needed to be sent and fortify a border instead of, putting timestamps in my script. Just getting totally engrossed in all the things I never realized you could do outside of combat with Elite. I even bought the necessary kit to do some exploration in exobiology, because I've wanted to scan alien planets since being raised on shit like TNG and Stargate as a kid. Elite isn't so much a game you play as it is a universe that you can choose to take part in. Be a trader, a scientist, a merc, throw your hat in with one of the major powers and sink your claws into politics, or ply your trade as a member of their navy, whether that's putting guns on the front line or patrolling backwater supply routes bagging pirate bounties. Fly a compact fighting vessel that's arguably overarmed, or a lethargic beast of a shipping hauler to chase the markets. I could blab for hours about what you can do in Elite, and short of walking around your ship, there's almost alarmingly little that you can't do, given some credits and a little bit of time, that is. So don't forget to pull in your landing gear and head out into the stars to see where your pilot's going to end up. Watch yourselves out there, Commanders. Thanks for watching till the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you like the original music used in the video, follow us on Spotify or your streaming platform of choice. See you next time on the Horizon Initiative.